January 26, 1887. 500 Italian soldiers march into a trap. They don't know it yet, but in 6 hours, 430 of them will be dead. Their bodies will bake under the Ethiopian sun. Their blood will stain Dogali gorge red. And the man who planned their destruction? An Ethiopian general whom Italy had never heard of. It's the worst military disaster in Italian colonial history. This is the Battle of Dogali, and the man who orchestrated this massacre. Ras Alula Engida, the Ethiopian general who made Europe realize Africa could fight back. But how did he do it? How did Ras Alula lure 500 Italians into a gorge with no escape? What made Italy think they could march through Ethiopian territory unchallenged? And why did this massacre make the Battle of Adwa inevitable 9 years later? Italy, a newly unified nation desperate to prove itself among Europe's empires, had entered the colonial race late. Britain ruled the seas, France held an empire in West Africa, Belgium was carving up the Congo, and even Portugal still clung to its coastal holdings. Italy sought its own empire and looked to the Red Sea. So in 1885, Italy seized Massawa, a barren port on the Red Sea coast, purchased from a broke Egypt. To Rome, it is a glorious beginning, a gateway to the Ethiopian highlands and the foundation of a new African colony. But in truth, it is a sun-scorched outpost surrounded by people who refuse to bow. Because standing between Italy and its dream of empire is one man, Ras Alula Engida. Born in the 1830s in Tigray, northern Ethiopia, Alula's childhood is forged in conflict. His father is a minor chief, his mother a woman of faith and defiance. Ethiopia is not a unified nation, but a mosaic of rival lords. Each province has its Ras, a governor, a warlord, a ruler in miniature, and each fights to control the empire's crown. In this world, Alula learns that survival demands cunning, patience, and absolute willpower. He rises under Emperor Johannes IV, a warrior king determined to reunite Ethiopia through force and diplomacy. Alula's brilliance quickly shines. To call him just a general would be an understatement. Ras Alula was a military genius, a veteran of wars against Egyptians, Sudanese Mahdists, and internal rivals. He had led armies through deserts and mountains, and won with strategies that left foreign observers stunned. His name alone carried the weight of Ethiopian power, and he immediately understood what Italy's move into Massawa meant. It was the first step of conquest. The Italians thought they were dealing with a mere local warlord, someone who could be bought or intimidated. They were wrong. Ras Alula knew the Red Sea coast like the lines of his palm, and he saw the danger of allowing Europeans to build inland roads. Italy began constructing a road from Massawa towards Sahati, a small fort inland. They claimed it was for trade and communication, but their soldiers built forts along the way, collected tolls from Ethiopian caravans, and demanded tribute from local chiefs. It was a quiet annexation under the guise of civilization. Ras Alula sent warnings. He demanded they stop encroaching beyond the coast. His message was simple. The land belongs to Ethiopia, and any soldier found beyond Massawa would be considered an invader. But in Rome, the politicians and generals dismissed him as a tribal leader who didn't understand progress. They called Ethiopia uncivilized, ignoring that this was one of the oldest Christian empires on earth, a state with written laws, architecture, and armies that had been fighting for centuries. In January 1887, that arrogance led Italy into catastrophe. General Oreste Jean, commander of Italian forces in Eritrea, orders Colonel de Cristoforis to march inland from Massawa to resupply the small Italian fort at Sati. The garrison there is isolated and vulnerable. Jean wants to show Italy's resolve to prove that its army can move confidently into Ethiopian territory. De Christophorus is the perfect officer for such a mission. Disciplined, obedient, but unimaginative. He commands 500 soldiers, Italian regulars armed with Viterli rifles, and believes that 500 Europeans can defeat any number of African tribesmen. His maps are outdated, drawn by men who never set foot in the region, but he trusts them completely. The route to Sati runs through Dogali Gorge, a narrow pass hemmed by rocky cliffs. De Christophorus sees no danger. His scouts report nothing. The silence of the highlands feels like safety. But every step his men take is watched from above. Ras Alula knows their exact route, their speed, even their supply limits. And he has already chosen Dogali as the place where they will die. But here's what the Italians didn't know. While they marched toward Dogali, confident in their rifles and their European superiority, Ras Alula wasn't just waiting. He was conducting an orchestra of death. Every warrior was positioned. Every sight line is calculated. Every escape route was sealed. The Italians thought they were marching to resupply a fort. They were actually walking into the most perfect ambush in African military history. January 24th, 1887. De Christophorus's column leaves Massawa. 2 days of hard marching through brutal heat, dust, and thin mountain air. The men sweat through wool uniforms, their canteens running dry. Yet morale is high. They believe they are untouchable. What they don't see are the 10,000 Ethiopian warriors gathering in the hills. He packs light, rifles, ammunition, 2 days' rations. No artillery. The terrain is too rough, the roads too narrow. Speed is the priority. Get in, reinforce Sati, get out. Simple. But the maps are wrong. Catastrophically, fatally wrong. Outdated, inaccurate, drawn by cartographers who never set foot in these mountains. They show roads that don't exist, smooth paths where there are only jagged rocks and treacherous slopes. They show open terrain where gorges twist like snakes. De Christophorus doesn't know it yet, but he's marching blind into terrain Alula has spent years mastering. Alula's plan is simple and devastating. He divides his army into 3 layers: riflemen hidden on the heights, spearmen waiting in reserve, and cavalry concealed in the ravines behind the gorge. His men are armed with everything from captured Remingtons to old muskets, but they have one overwhelming advantage. They know the terrain. When De Christophorus's men enter the gorge, they will be boxed in on all sides. Finally, at dawn on January 26th, the Italians entered Dogali. The gorge narrows, the sun climbs, the heat thickens. Then a single whistle splits the air, Alula's signal. The cliffs erupt in gunfire. Ethiopian marksmen unleash a storm of bullets. The sound reverberates like thunder trapped between stone walls. Italian soldiers fall in the first seconds, torn apart before they can react. De Christophorus shouts for order, his voice cracking above the roar. Form squares, return fire. They obey, forming tight defensive blocks, the same formations that once saved European armies in Africa. But Dogali is not an open plain. The gorge is too narrow, the rocks too steep, the squares become cages. Rifle volleys thunder upward, but Ethiopian fighters shift constantly, firing from new angles, unseen, untouchable. The Italians fight bravely. Each man carries 80 rounds, and they use them all. They reload, aim, and fire with mechanical discipline. Ethiopian warriors fall, but for everyone killed, more pour in from the flanks. Alula directs the battle from above, adjusting fire, moving his men like pieces on a board. Hours pass. The sun becomes a burning eye overhead. The Italians' ammunition dwindles, their throats crack with thirst. Smoke from black powder hangs in the gorge like a shroud. When the first Ethiopian cavalry charge comes, it hits like a thunderclap. Horsemen burst from the ravines, spears gleaming, cutting off the retreat. Christophorus orders bayonets fixed, and the gorge erupts into hand-to-hand combat, steel against wood, courage against inevitability. For 6 hours, the battle rages. By midday, it is slaughtered. Italian formations collapse. Men fight in small knots, surrounded, desperate. Christophorus rallies his officers until he is struck 3 times, chest, shoulder, and throat. He falls to his knees, still clutching his sword, then sinks face first into the dust of a land his empire thought it could own. By 1 o'clock, it's over. Out of 500 Italian soldiers, only 70 survive. 430 lie dead or dying, their bodies baking under the relentless sun. Ethiopian losses are heavy, but far fewer. The gorge is silent now, except for the moans of the wounded and the low chant of victory songs echoing across the cliffs. Ras Alula rides into the gorge, his horse stepping carefully among corpses. He does not smile. He has seen too many battlefields to find joy in death. He orders his men to collect weapons, tend the wounded, and treat prisoners with dignity. They are given water and shade, not out of mercy alone, but strategy. Alula wants these men to live long enough to tell Europe what happened, to carry home the message that Ethiopia fights with discipline, intelligence, and honor. When news of the disaster reaches Rome, the shock is volcanic. Newspapers scream massacre, disgrace. Crowds riot. Windows of government offices are smashed. How could this happen? An African army wiped out 500 modern soldiers? Prime Minister Agostino de Pretis faces outrage. Italy's colonial adventure, once hailed as a matter of national pride, becomes a symbol of humiliation. But nationalism refuses to admit failure. The government reframes Dogali as a tale of heroism, brave Italians overwhelmed by barbaric hordes. Statues are erected for Christophorus in Rome and Milan. His death became a myth. Emperor Johannes IV reads Alula's report with pride but also caution. He knows Italy will return. He sends a message to Rome through diplomatic channels. Withdraw from our lands, respect Ethiopia's borders, or face worse. Italy ignores the warning. In private, Italian officials vow revenge. They will return, stronger, and this time they will not fail. Ras Alula knows the storm is coming. He fortifies Tigray, stockpiles captured rifles, and buys new ones from European merchants willing to sell to anyone with silver. He trains his warriors relentlessly. When Emperor Johannes died in 1889, the new ruler, Menelik II, inherited both Alula's army and his warning: the Italians will be back. They return 9 years later, 1896. Italy sends 20,000 men, the largest expeditionary force it has ever deployed. Modern artillery, machine guns, supply trains stretching for miles. They march toward the town of Adwa, certain that this time will be different. But Menelik has learned every lesson from Dogali. He has united Ethiopia's provinces, armed his forces with 100,000 rifles, and mobilized an army 5 times the size of Italy's. Ras Alula, older now but still sharp, advises him on strategy and terrain. When battle comes, Ethiopia unleashes the full fury of a united empire. At Adwa, Italy suffers an even greater catastrophe. 7,000 Italians die in a single day. The message was simple: Ethiopia cannot be conquered. If you want to see how Ethiopia turned that warning into total victory, watch my Battle of Adwa documentary, the sequel to this story, where Emperor Menelik II takes everything Ras Alula taught him and annihilates Italy's army on an unimaginable scale. Hit subscribe. We're building a series uncovering every moment Africa made Europe regret showing up, from Adwa to Isandawana, Khartoum, and beyond. Drop a comment. Which battle should come next? Should we dive deeper into Adwa, the Zulu victory at Isandawana, or the Ashanti Wars against Britain?